presentations, they said, well, most of the nuclear engineers we have here in the US started in the 60s and 70s during the boom years, and they're all going to be retiring soon. And we're going to be building all these new reactors. We're going to need so many new nuclear engineers that this is a guaranteed job for the future. And so it's no coincidence that I then went on to get my master's and PhD in nuclear engineering. But unfortunately for nuclear power, in a way, history soon begins to start repeating itself. Beginning in the late first decade of the 2000s, natural gas prices begin to plummet, making natural gas plants extremely cheap to operate for the production of electricity. In addition, you have the economic downturn of 2008 and 2009. Now, this just destroys those projections of the big growth in electricity demand in the US, with actually some places in the US actually declining with their electricity demand. In addition, to make matters worse, in 2011, you have the triple meltdown that occurs at Fukushima Daiichi in Japan due to the Great East Japanese Earthquake and tsunami. And while the first two factors are kind of economic, the Fukushima Daiichi disaster, in a way similar to 3 Mile Island, leads to a lot of new regulatory requirements, a lot of new costs for new plants out there. And what you see are suddenly headlines that are eerily familiar to the days of the 70s and 80s, with new nuclear plants being canceled rather than ordered. And some plants being canceled after construction had already begun, with losses that are really staggering to comprehend. That's 16 billion with a B for a plant that was recently canceled. And what it really looks like right now is that the nuclear renaissance may really only result in 2 new plants being built in the US at the Vogtle site down south. But somewhat unsimilar to the downturn of the 70s and 80s is that it's not just new plants that are being affected. It's also that existing fleet of about 100 reactors that we have operating. You see, with the discovery of cheap gas due to fracking and the shale discoveries, in addition with more and more renewables coming on the grid, like wind and solar, which even though they're intermittent, when they are producing power, they're producing power very cheaply. And nuclear plants cannot just throttle back when electricity is cheap and throttle back up when electricity is expensive. They essentially operate at 100% power 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And some plants are actually losing money in the electricity markets that they're competing. And you have some plants that are now closing before they're reaching the end of life, rather than to continue to sustain these losses. A particularly big one was Onofre in California. And in a bad way, I like to think, is that a lot of these nuclear plants that are closing are actually being replaced by natural gas plants, which actually can throttle depending on the price of electricity. Now, it's worth mentioning that there are many potential policy solutions that are being pitched right now to this problem. Not only here in Illinois, but in other states and even nationally too. I won't get into the politics of these, but essentially what they're trying to look at is, well, you know, nuclear is a baseload source of electricity. Yes, it does not produce greenhouse gases. Yes, it is very reliable and can go through many storms that other power sources can't. But so should we credit it in a way that we don't credit other sources of electricity? And that's essentially what some of these bills try to do. Now, again, I won't get into the details, but one thing I will do is I highly encourage everyone here to look into these issues, to learn about them, to learn about what they're really trying to do. As you see with this article down here, it's just from last week. So this is a very current issue that's still up for discussion, especially at the national level now. Now, that's not to say that this kind of latest nuclear downturn has affected everybody. Internationally, places like India and China are still pursuing very aggressive nuclear growth schedules. Essentially, what these countries are discovering or learning is that in order to provide the mass electrification that they want for their people, without literally killing their people through pollution, is that nuclear power has to be some part of the equation for that. nuclear power might not have to be the only part of the equation, but it has to play some role for these countries. And they're continuing building many reactors. There are many that have already been built and many more under construction and under planning. But what does that mean for the nuclear industry here in the US? You might have heard rumors, well, the nuclear industry here is really actually dying. Well, again, just like in the 1980s, I think that's being overly dramatic. I don't think the nuclear industry here in the US is dying, but I think it definitely is changing, and hopefully changing for the good. What we've seen in the past, say, 4 or 5 years is suddenly a bunch, kind of a plethora of new nuclear reactor startup companies formed. A lot of these are small companies kind of formed with venture capital. Actually, some fairly high-profile investors like Bill Gates and Peter Thiel, amongst others. And although this is a diverse group of companies, one thing that they do have in common is that they're kind of looking back in a way. They're looking back in time to that decision made by Admiral Rickover and the Navy to pursue water reactor technology. And they're questioning, well, was this really the right choice for nuclear power as a commercial entity? And what we've seen is suddenly kind of a resurgence in alternative reactor technology. Say, liquid metal reactors like EBR-1 and like the USS Seawolf was, salt-cooled reactors, gas-cooled reactors, thorium-fueled reactors, even some companies looking into fusion. And here at Argonne, we've been working with a lot of these companies, helping them with their core designs, their plant designs, their fuel designs, and safety and risk analysis, if I give a little plug for myself. But what I think is really interesting about a lot of these companies is the way that they're leveraging work that has been done here at Argonne over the past couple decades. You see, even though there was this kind of stagnation in commercial nuclear power here, research into nuclear energy did not stop here at the lab. Instead, research kind of focused on addressing some of those issues that water reactors present. Things like, well, can we design a core that shuts itself down rather than depending on an active engineered system? Can we make a plant that can cool itself rather than needing pumps and electricity and things along those lines? Can we create fuel that's more robust and can survive more conditions or go to higher temperatures to produce more electricity or more power? And what we see with a lot of these new companies is that they're beginning to leverage this technology. Argonne has had a tough time due to this stagnation in commercial nuclear power about getting these technologies to break through to the commercial sector because there hasn't been much of an appetite to take risk in the nuclear industry lately. But now that nuclear is really looking to innovate, partly because it has to innovate to stay relevant, you're having companies leverage this technology and actually starting to incorporate them into their designs. So with that, where do I think nuclear power is really going here in the US? I like to think of these new nuclear reactor companies, and this may be a bit of a stretch, but it's the way I like to think of it. I like to think of these companies kind of in the same stream as, say, a company like Apple. Apple didn't invent MP3 players, they didn't invent smartphones, they didn't invent tablets. But what Apple was able to do was they were able to innovate in a way, to modify these products in such a way that they had a breakthrough. Suddenly, they were palatable to the masses. Suddenly, everyone had to have them. I wonder, can one of these new nuclear companies innovate in the same way for nuclear? Nuclear has now been around for 75 years in December. But can one of them reshape it in such a way that nuclear has that same type of breakthrough? Where suddenly nuclear is the thing that a utility has to have, or that a company that's operating data centers or using power for some other big operation, that they have to have in their operation. Can one of these companies suddenly have a breakthrough to where nuclear is now an order of magnitude cheaper than coal or natural gas? Or where a plant can be constructed in a year rather than a decade, and for millions rather than billions of dollars? Now, I don't know if that innovation will really happen. But I think one thing that I can say confidently is that if one of these nuclear companies can get there, that Argonne, in the same way that Argonne was there in those pioneering days of the 50s and 60s and 70s, Argonne will be there working with them to help make it a reality now, too. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions, and I think I got that in under 40 minutes, too. So thank you very much.
Nice work, Dave. Thank you very much. Thank you. I think we've got plenty of questions in the crowd this evening, so please, just right down here to start.
Thank you. A two-part question. The Soviet Union obviously we weren't helping them in any way when they developed their nuclear program. Did they use a similar type of water cooling system? And the second part, is there any example of all of the nations that do have nuclear reactors that use some kind of different cooling system other than water?
That's a really good question. So actually, the Soviet Union kind of actually did end up down a similar path as the US with water technology. Actually, their primary reactor was called VVER, which the VV stands for water reactor in Russian. But the general plant design was much different, but there was still water involved. And you see a lot of countries, especially those in the developing world, which are taking those initial steps into nuclear, like China, like India, is that they are still starting with water reactor technology because countries like the US and Russia have experience with them. But I think what you see is countries like China and Russia and India is they now have plans in place to transition out of water reactor technology sometime in the near future. Russia has actually built several liquid metal-cooled reactors recently, and the hope is to build even more in the future and kind of transition to that. In China, they just built their first liquid metal reactor a couple years ago. They actually have a high-temperature gas reactor coming on later this year or early next year. India actually wants to go along the same route with liquid metal reactors, but hopefully to use thorium because they have a lot of thorium in their country, so they want to use that. So I think there is kind of a general thought that for these countries, they're going to transition there eventually, but to get things going fast, they essentially imported water reactor technology from places like Russia and places like the US. But that's a good question.
Hi. First, thank you for the lecture. Really appreciate it. Thank you to Argonne for providing these lectures and making them available to the public. My question deals with the size, the physical size of reactors. You know, we see commercial plants, the amount of real estate that they take up. We think about a submarine, a much smaller space, and even down to, you know, back in the 50s with potentially putting one in a car, in theory. Is there a lower limit to a complete working nuclear reactor to generate electricity?
I think theoretically, there might not really be a lower limit, but we do see a practical kind of lower limit to reactors. Essentially, kind of the lower limit that we've seen for commercial reactors is in the couple megawatt range, where, say, in comparison to the water reactors that are out there now, are in the thousands of megawatt range. The thought with these really small reactors is that, well, we can get markets like maybe up in Alaska or very remote places in Canada, or maybe for the military where they just need a small amount of power in a very small area. But I think a lot of those new reactor companies are looking at reactors that are smaller in comparison to the water reactors we have out there now. They're not looking at kind of what we call the monolithic water reactor that produces many thousands of megawatts of electricity. And there's been some talk of developing what they call small modular reactors, where maybe one way we can ease that big upfront cost for nuclear is we'll build a small one. We'll just build a couple small ones at a site rather than build one gigantic reactor. But that does have some efficiency problems, but there are companies looking into doing that. And most of the new companies are planning smaller designs because of that. Help lessen that initial hurdle to get going, in essence. So.
Can you speculate to, what kind of physical size are you talking about? I mean, I think about a nuclear submarine, right, and the amount of space associated with the reactor itself. Are we talking size of a bus, a van, a car?
Oh. So that's a good question. He was asking about, well, what about the real physical size of the reactor? So, and it might be surprising that some of these advanced reactor concepts, the not water reactor concepts, the actual core itself, the actual nuclear core, might only be a little bit bigger than this. I mean, it's really, we're talking about maybe several meters beyond that. But what has really made nuclear plants so big in the past, and by big I mean the amount of real estate that they take up, is that they've historically had very large site boundaries. So we've kept people far away from the actual nuclear plant. There's various reasons for that, for security reasons, for reasons if there was an accident, there's a big buffer zone. But a lot of the new reactors are looking at, well, if we can put in some of these new technologies to address safety, can we actually get rid of this big kind of site boundary? Can we actually site at, say, the reactor building rather than having hundreds of acres of empty land that we don't do anything with? A lot of the new companies are actually looking into that. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission here in the US has actually said that they're open for that if you can demonstrate that you're sufficiently safe to do that. So I think if new nuclear goes forward in the US, you're actually going to see that. The plant sites are not going to look like the old water reactor plant sites that just take up huge amounts of land. So.
Question over here.
Getting back to the question that was asked a moment ago and your response to it, it seemed like maybe, I don't know, 5 years ago, there was much more interest in the small modular reactors, and that seems to have sort of fizzled out since then. Do you know what happened?
Yeah, it's one of those questions that if you ask 10 people, you might get 10 different responses, but I'll kind of give my opinion. Part of that, I think, is just the general downturn, or the electrical markets just being in general less attractive as gas has gotten cheaper and things along those lines. So there's just less interest in building new plants. But I think there was also, there was this thought, well, these small modular reactors, at least the first ones being pitched, were still kind of water reactor technology. They were just small water reactor technology. And that, well, if we go small, we can learn the lessons of the past with water reactors, but then we can keep down the capital costs and do all of those things. But did that really start to come true once they got into the detailed design phase? And I think we saw some companies kind of fizzle out once they actually started to get into the detailed design and really run the numbers about what the costs were going to be. But now, that's not to say that all companies went away. One that is still moving forward is called NuScale, that's out west. They're actually looking to build a prototype water reactor, a small modular reactor at the old Idaho site, just a mile or two from actually where EBR-1 is located. So we'll see if that goes forward, but they're actually doing site planning right now for the reactor.
Question over here.
Right here. Thanks for taking our questions. I really appreciate it. I was wondering if you could briefly tell us what shape the inventory is in right now in terms of life expectancy. Are 60% of our reactors past their 60% or 80% of their life expectancy, or where are we in terms of that?
That's a really good question because we still have reactors out there that were built in the 60s and early 70s that are still operating. Most of them got life extensions to 60 years through the regulatory process. Some are looking at potentially moving to 80 years through the regulatory process. There is some burden that goes along with this. They have to demonstrate, that essentially all the reactor internals can sustain this many more years going. And I think, I'm trying to think if I've seen any plants that have gone after a life extension and not been able to get it. I can't think of any off the top of my head. Most have been able to demonstrate that, hey, we can keep operating for another decade or two. But I think what you're really seeing now is the premature closures based on economics rather than the closures based on life expectancy. Or you may have plants that were getting to an end of a life expectancy, and rather than renewing, they're shutting down because of the economics that they're in. So I don't know an exact percentage. Again, most reactors were built late 60s through the 70s. Some were finished in the 80s, so you can kind of do the math about where we're getting to with life.
Question in the center.
Yeah, I had a question about where we stand with nuclear waste disposal. Is Yucca Mountain ever going to open? I understand there's some innovative approaches with burning nuclear waste in a particle accelerator and these kind of things. So where are we right now?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and one kind of I skipped over in the presentation. But it really deserves a presentation all of its own just on that topic. But there's the question about, okay, well, what should we do with the fuel that's coming out of water reactors? And again, this kind of gets back to one of the characteristics of water reactors were that they really weren't designed to consume their own waste in kind of the same way that maybe an EBR-1 was or other potential reactor designs were. There wasn't that need or that desire back in the very early days. So now we have most of the spent nuclear fuel that comes out of the reactor, which, just for those who don't know, when we just talk about nuclear waste, we just mean the fuel rods that had been in the reactor for 3 years, and we pull out those fuel rods. It's not the bucket of green waste that some people sometimes think of. But right now, most of that waste just stays on site at the nuclear plant in either a cooling pool or they put it in casks where it just sits there. But truthfully, there's still a lot of life left in that fuel. The water reactors don't utilize most of the energy that's in that fuel, where other type of reactors can. And actually, some of these new reactor startup companies are pitching ideas of, well, we can actually utilize that fuel in our reactors in different ways. There are some hurdles to some of those ideas where you have to reprocess the fuel first. Reprocessing can be expensive. The US has been hesitant to reprocess in the past because it's technically feasible to pull out, say, plutonium, and you could use that to make bombs, which we don't care about here in the US. We have all the plutonium we ever need for bombs, but we've been afraid about that technology being exported to other countries, so we haven't done it here in the US. But I think it's a possibility. I think with the latest administration, you've seen a resurgence of interest in Yucca Mountain, of just, well, we take the fuel out of the reactors and we'll put it there, at least for the time being. Whether that actually moves somewhere in the near future, that might be for people more in the political know than me, but we'll see.
Question over here, please.
Where do you see fusion going in the future and fitting into the puzzle here?
Well, I'll warn you, you're talking to a fission guy. So there's a joke amongst us fission guys that fusion is always 50 years away. You know, it was 50 years away in 1960, it was 50 years away in 2000, and it's 50 years away today. We might be making some progress down that line. I don't know enough of the detail about all the fusion plants to give a really educated opinion. I'll say one thing that I have seen by the fusion concepts that are out there is that they're fairly complex and complicated. And I think if one thing we've learned from the water reactors that we've deployed in fission world is that we really want to be heading in the opposite direction. We want to be simplifying, making things as simple and easy to construct as possible, not complicating things. You know, we know how to do complicated fission. Do we just want to add complicated fusion to that? But hopefully, in the future, they're able to make those breakthroughs to get to that stage. I really don't know what that timeline might look like to get there.
Dave catches breath. There, much like fission, there are a number of new startups as well in fusion energy technology. So I've seen a lot of new investors and young entrepreneurs really pursuing new concepts in nuclear fission. That's very good. Fusion, I'm sorry. Question down here, I believe.
Yeah, thanks for your insights tonight. Sorry to go back to the small modular reactors, but I've been looking at some and studying some up in Canada. Trisofuel, 5 megawatt, 10 megawatt small modular, the fuel invented here, but not being able to be utilized here for whatever reasons. They're doing it in Canada. They seem to have gotten rid of all of the issues involved in nuclear fuel. You can't get the fuel to weaponize it. Its thermal spikes are self-regulating, and they've already booked repositories for the waste. Do you think that those kind of dispersed grid types of reactors could get to the point where they're compatible with the grid and at a similar kind of pricing mechanism?
Yeah, I think so. For those who might not know, he was discussing trisofuel particles, which trisofuel are essentially these very small kind of fuel kernels that are coated with very strong materials that make it very difficult for them to melt or break or release the radioactivity that we don't like to be released. The US, actually, the Department of Energy has had a pretty aggressive research program into trisofuel development here in the US, say over the past decade. A lot of that work's being done out at Idaho National Lab with some help here, but developing, kind of going through the fuel qualification process, because unfortunately that can be a painful process in the nuclear industry because you need to see how fuel performs, you need to irradiate it, and maybe you need to irradiate it over years to get the type of testing that you want out of it. But I think there is promise there. I think that's kind of the first part of your question. The second part I kind of consider a little separately. Do I think there might be a place for small nuclear in the future? And I think that might be true. I actually had kind of an eye-opening experience a couple months ago. I went to a conference by the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. It was called the Power and Energy Conference. So there were a lot of people there from the utilities, people looking into other.
Coming up on Naperville News 17. Get a peek at the upgrades and renovations at Edwards Cancer Center. Learn more about an exhibit coming to downtown that's all heart. And roam with the bison on the fields of Fermi. Hello everyone, I'm Kim Pierce. Thanks for joining us for this week's Naperville News. The shootings at Florida's Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School on Valentine's Day launched a social media movement and a call to action over gun control. On April 20th, students at Naperville Central took part in a national walkout that continued that conversation. Our own Christine Lena was there.
Over 100 Naperville Central students made their way to Rotary Hill on the morning of April 20th to make the Carillon their platform for speaking out against gun violence.
You don't talk to everybody in a 3,000 person high school. You never know where people stand. You don't know if people are going to be on the same side as you. But to see all these people come out and show support for a cause that you understand and you want change for, and to know not only is it happening here, but it's happening in this city and other places, this state and other places, and all over this country, it's absolutely amazing.
The walkout marked the 19th anniversary of the Columbine shooting, which remains ever relevant to the movement.
Parkland and Newtown, and I thought Columbine was the exception. I didn't think it would be the norm. Enough is enough.
Showing support for students were members of the League of Women Voters, Moms Demand Action, and parents, some of which even gave speeches.
And we are here now to support you, to raise up your voices, to follow your leadership, because you are on the front lines, you are the ones who are most at risk, and we have let you down, and it is now time for us to stand up and help you.
And to continue the momentum, students handed out price tags created by March for Our Lives in an effort to support gun reform.
Well, these price tags are representing how much money the NRA takes per person that dies. So like many politicians take money from the NRA, so we're representing how much the NRA takes per death.
Nationally, that price averages to $1.18 per student, while Illinois' average is one of the lowest compared to other states, at 3 cents per student. But that $1.18 adds up when you look at the numbers, especially for students.
Of the 96 people killed by firearms per day, 47 are children and teens, from age 0 to 19.
The walkout also had stations for students to register to vote and write letters to local representatives. Reporting for Naperville News 17, I'm Christine Lena.
Students from all 5 high schools within Districts 203 and 204 took part in the previous walkout on March 14th. Pedo pubs have been a hot topic of debate in Naperville for months, but City Council effectively ended the discussion at their last meeting. Naperville News 17's Casey Krajewski has more.
Pedal pubs have been cut off in Naperville. City Council took firm action against the vehicles and all quadricycles by voting 7-1 to ban them throughout the city of Naperville.
I don't think residents or businesses outside the downtown want to see or be a party to the pedal pubs any more than the downtown does.
I think it needs to be considered throughout the whole city versus just downtown and just the arterial roads.
Councilwoman Judy Broadhead was the lone vote against the ban, while Councilman John Crumman recused himself from the discussion. At their previous meeting, Council banned pedal pubs from downtown Naperville and arterial roads, citing traffic concerns as the main issue. However, what will be coming to downtown is a new park. Council unanimously approved the final design of the Naperville Jaycees Park presented to them by Hitchcock Design Group. The Smart Park will include charging stations, a rain garden, and enough seating for anyone to hold an outdoor meeting.
If you think about the Riverwalk as you walk up and down, most of the seating is what we call passive seating. There's really not seating in the entire section of the Riverwalk where someone could sit down other than at a picnic table and hold an outdoor meeting.
Rail shared new renderings of the park with Council that detail the layout of each element of the park. Energy for the park will be provided by solar panels that will be added to the top of the Municipal Center. The panels will also help offset the energy requirements of the Municipal Center, the savings from which will help pay for the park maintenance. Council also voted unanimously to officially make the future park a part of the Riverwalk. For Naperville News 17, I'm Casey Krajewski.
Rail added that the proximity of Naperville J.C.'s Park to the Municipal Center and the new Water Street District would invite plenty of foot traffic into and through the park. Another new subdivision may be coming to Naperville. The Planning and Zoning Commission recently extended a public hearing on the rezoning of land on Book Road next to the River Run subdivision. JHL Developments is seeking low-density residential R1A zoning for the land, currently owned by Zion Lutheran Church. However, city staff does not support the requested R1A zoning since neighboring subdivisions like River Run are zoned R1. They say the different requirements for each code could result in an inconsistent look from subdivision to subdivision. The developer will continue working with city staff to come to an agreement before the case is heard again on May 2nd. The proposed subdivision would contain 8 custom-built homes of at least 3,000 square feet. After over a year, Edward Elmhurst Health has now completed its $2 million renovation project on the Edward Cancer Center at the Naperville campus. Edward's staff, community members, and donors to the project gathered for a recent open house to check out the upgrades to the center.
You know, the Cancer Center was built here in 2005, and it was built with a little bit of the future in mind, but we kind of overgrew that future, so we had to really renovate it. Number one, it's gotten a little bit musty around the edges.
As part of a multi-phase expansion plan, the Edward Foundation raised funding for the improvements, which include 34 infusion bays, 16 exam rooms, and a larger, brighter waiting area.
We actually had a patient group that met, and really we sought their opinion on what would make them more comfortable. We wanted to feel more like home for them when they're here, and so that was really what we were trying to do, is create a home-like atmosphere for them when they're here.
A tribute to Hope wall was another new addition to the space, which allows donors to purchase and place a message of encouragement to those going through treatment.
Cancer is a messy business to have to deal with, and to make it much more pleasant, it's really done amazing things for people. And I think, you know, the idea was to also brighten it up and make it really a much more pleasant place.
If you're interested in donating to oncology programs at Edward or purchasing a tile for the Tribute to Hope wall, you can do so on Edward Elmhurst Health website. After the break, springtime means babies in the wild. Learn when they need help and when they don't.
I think it's really special that Naperville has a community television station devoted to what's happening in Naperville on so many levels, at the citizen resident level, at the government level, at the not-for-profit level, at the business level. We are here covering this vibrant community and telling its stories. It's so important, the role we play. We bring a little bit of home to you no matter where you are or when you want to watch. You can always go to our website, follow us on Facebook and Twitter or any of our social media sites, and find a story about Naperville from Naperville Community Television.
More District 204 students are eating school lunch, and more of them are enjoying it. This is the first year for Organic Life, District 204's new food service provider. And in that first year, it's managed to reverse the trend of declining participation that started in 2016. At the beginning of the 2017-2018 school year, there was an average of about 8,600 meals served per day. That has since grown to over 9,100 meals per day, according to data from February. The food is also getting more positive reviews from students.
For us to go from a 38.1%, I agree that the food tastes good, to almost 53%, is pretty telling on the quality of food and how it's being served by Organic Life.
The district wants to continue increasing meal participation and is considering rolling out breakfast to all schools that don't serve it. Currently, it's served everywhere except 1 middle school and 5 elementary schools.
What is the reasons why we're not serving breakfast? It is a building level decision, but what are those reasons? Is it that buses just arrive a little bit later than anticipated? Is it due to the free and reduced population? Is it due to there's just no demand for it? Kids eat before they come?
Board members were supportive of serving breakfast everywhere, citing studies that show a good breakfast improves academic performance throughout the day. STEM is a popular buzzword in schools, and for many students, it's a big part of their future. NCTV17's Casey Krajewski headed to an expo to help students explore just that.
The next generation of scientists and engineers gathered at Fermilab for the annual Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics Career Expo. High school students from as far away as Milwaukee came looking to learn about careers in the fields that interest them.
I think it's really cool that I can see like the different careers everyone does and like how they started off in college and where they're at now. I think that's neat.
In addition to 5 separate panel discussions, students were able to speak one-on-one with professionals working in STEM-related careers. With attention-grabbing demonstrations like flaming rocks and robotic measuring arms, the companies there were working hard to engage the students.
We're really happy that Fermilab can open its doors to have businesses, research centers, professional associations from all throughout Chicago to be able to share their areas of STEM, and there's so many emerging careers coming out. We want kids to know about those.
All these growing minds need is a STEM. For Naperville News 17, I'm Casey Krajewski.
And while those high schoolers were learning about science, some area pre-kindergartners were giving seniors a lesson in art and friendship. April 16th through 20th is the Week of the Young Child. And in honor of that, Kids Campus Childcare teamed up with Harbor Chase Senior Living Center to celebrate. The toddlers were bussed over to Harbor Chase with art supplies in hand to make crafts with the residents. The theme of the week was Everyone Smiles in the Same Language, which was definitely evident throughout their visit.
We're talking a bit about diversity, but how everybody is still, the same on the inside, even though we may be a little bit different. So part of talking about our art project with the kids afterwards when we have a discussion with them is that everybody made a face, but everyone's a little different, but we all use the same materials and we all use the same art supplies, things like that. So
the event was topped off with a special visit from Harbor Chase's resident therapy dog, Paul. Students in District 204 went back to the books to get a lesson in languages around the world. Whether it was Spanish, Mandarin, or sign language, Multicultural Reading Night got students into Still Middle School after hours. It was all to promote diversity and get students to explore books and languages from 10 different cultures.
I also think it's extremely important that we get to learn and listen about how other languages read and listen to the language so that they can understand the difficulties that other people within our country have when they are trying to understand the English language. So we want to promote for students to be able to become bilingual, and that of course then adds a better opportunities for them in the future.
Every student left the event with a free book in a language of their choice. The event was put on by District 204's Bilingual Parent Advisory Council and Parent Diversity Advisory Council. This was the 4th year for the district's Multicultural Reading Night. Springtime is here, and so are more baby animals in the wild. Our own Christine Lena recently learned about how to react if you cross paths with some furry friends.
Caring for injured baby animals like this newborn squirrel is a daily task for those at the Willowbrook Wildlife Center in Glen Ellen. But when someone like you or I comes across young wildlife, it's best to take the advice from the experts before taking action.
If someone comes across a baby, the first thing that I would do is make sure that the baby is not injured. You can usually just see that from a little bit of a distance.
If you notice the baby animal isn't injured, then what Willowbrook naturalists like Crystal say to do is stay back, so the mother won't be afraid to retrieve her baby.
I mean, the biggest thing is a lot of times people think they need to help just because they're babies. So just because you see babies that you think are abandoned, before you think they're abandoned, take a step back, think about what kind of species it is, and if you have any questions, you can give us a call at Willowbrook.
But if a baby animal does appear to be injured, it's okay to get a closer look and help.
Even though we try to be very hands-off when you find babies, if it comes down to seeing if the baby is injured or not, mom will not abandon the baby because it smells like humans. That is definitely a myth.
It's also recommended that you don't try to rehabilitate any injured or abandoned baby animals.
It's very difficult to do, and we've have years and years of experience here at Willowbrook working through different formulas and different ways to feed them. So really let the experts take care of those babies. So if you think this baby's so cute, I want to take it into my home, it is something that can be detrimental to that animal.
Crystal says as you may notice baby rabbits, birds, or squirrels in your yard or trees at this time of year, just remember that they'll only be nesting there for a few weeks, and keep children and pets at a safe distance from them. Reporting for Naperville News 17, I'm Christine Lena.
And another tip from experts at Willowbrook, if you see an opossum on your street that's been fatally struck by a car, there are sometimes babies that survive. It may be worth a check of the possum's pouch and a call to the Wildlife Center. Coming up, a story of beating the odds by going from homeless to Harvard.
This Healthy Minute is brought to you by Edward Elmhurst Health. For 35 million Americans, the return of spring means a return to allergies and symptoms that make them miserable, like runny noses, itchy and watery eyes, sneezing, and coughing. Dr. Modiani of Edward Medical Group says treatment depends on the severity of those symptoms.
We start off with some local medicines in the form of some nose sprays or some eye drops in case it bothers you. If it doesn't alleviate the symptoms, then we go in a pill form, which can be some over-the-counter medicines like Claritin or Allegra, or prescription medicines. Beyond that, we have a step-up approach. Then we may start using some nasal steroids.
Dr. Modiani says monitor pollen counts and limit outside activities when the levels are high. Keep doors and windows closed and use central or room air conditioning. Same thing for travel by car. Keep the windows rolled up and use the AC. If you're outdoors for a long time, take a bath or shower and wash your clothes before you go to bed. For more information, visit ehealth.org/services/primary-care/EMG.
Turning Point Autism Foundation has been opening its doors to the public every Thursday this April for open houses in honor of Autism Awareness Month. On one recent Thursday, Naperville News 17's Blaine Irwin stopped by.
Turning Point Autism Foundation does a lot more than just raise awareness about autism spectrum disorder. They're educators, offering a therapeutic day school for kids aged middle school and up, with extra professional support to help those with the disorder succeed.
Where all of our students are supported by a classroom teacher, by a full-time aide, and with the support of clinicians. We have 2 occupational therapists on staff, 2 speech pathologists. We also have support and specialty from 4 different board-certified behavior analysts.
Beyond the classroom, Turning Point has a kitchen and model apartment to teach its students essential life skills, like cooking and laundry. And it has therapeutic rooms like the sensory room and an occupational therapy gym. For high school graduates, Turning Point has a career college to help prepare students for employment by giving them hands-on experience in places like the Inspiration Cafe, a model Walgreens, and other locations.
That way, when they go into an interview, they can tell the hiring manager that they already know how to do the job, which is a great competitive edge for our students. And it's a way we've kind of flipped the paradigm and helped change the statistic that nationwide individuals with autism are woefully under or unemployed.
Providing the missing puzzle piece to help students with autism reach their full potential. For Naperville News 17, I'm Blaine Irwin.
If you want to support Turning Point Autism Foundation, several local car dealerships are donating $20 per test drive until the end of April. In celebration of the 10th anniversary of their Women's Transitional Housing Program, 360 Youth Services brought in a speaker to talk about overcoming the odds and coming out on top. Our own Casey Krajewski shares her story.
Debbie Robertson started the Women's Transitional Housing Program at 360 Youth Services 10 years ago. In that time, the program has served 143 girls. Robertson says every girl in the program has read Liz Murray's book, Breaking Night. 360 Youth Services brought Murray, who grew up homeless during her high school years, to Naperville to tell her inspiring tale.
I think what we're trying to do tonight is really talk about resiliency and how we can overcome things and we can develop hope and continue to carry on despite having difficult circumstances.
Murray detailed her story growing up as the daughter of drug addicts in the Bronx, sleeping on subway cars and friends' couches before being accepted into the Humanities Preparatory Academy in Manhattan. After graduating high school in 2 years, she was accepted into Harvard University and earned a scholarship from the New York Times. Several young people currently using 360 Youth programs attended the event, hoping to find connection between Murray's and their own stories.
Coming to this program, I feel like I've gotten hope, and I'm getting like help on how to rent an apartment or own a home, and I'm getting insight on that, and I really feel grateful for this program. I really do.
Murray was insistent, however, that she didn't do it through hard work alone, and without help from others, she never would have gotten out of the Bronx.
We live in a world as homeless youth, and we wonder, does anyone really care about us? Has society forgotten about us? Can I make a better life? You being here tonight is the answer to a question and a prayer for the young people that are around you, and you are holding them up to be their greatest possibility.
For Naperville News 17, I'm Casey Krajewski.
360 Youth Services offers a number of services in addition to their housing program, including counseling, mentorship, and prevention education. This summer, sculptures will be scattered throughout the heart of Naperville. And Naperville News 17's Christine Lena caught up with a local artist who's part of the project.
Usually I finish when, I think I'm done, and then I look at it for a couple days, and then I always find something that I want to add.
An artist for over 30 years, Marianne Lisson-Kuhn uses her Naperville roots as inspiration throughout her work.
My ancestors settled here about when the town looked like this.
This year, the fifth-generation Napervillians' love of art and history are coming to life on this heart-shaped piece for downtown Naperville's annual Summer Sculptures.
So it's focused on the Century Memorial Chapel, which is appropriate for the heart and love and everything. So what I did was I recreated the map from 1869 from Naperville, but just focused on the section that had the chapel and the surrounding area of the map. And then on the other side, it's enlarged with just the chapel in its original position, which was up on Jefferson Street by the Jefferson Hill Shops, which has Quigley's underneath.
About 5 to 6 hours of work have gone into the piece every day for the last 2 weeks, which is sponsored by Ron Stanger of Morgan Stanley and Naperville Heritage Society.
It is different, and I like it because, I do a lot of two-dimensional art, but it always makes it a little more interesting to challenge yourself. And in sculptures, they're all different. This one is actually one of the more simple ones because it is so smooth and straight up and down.
And in truly taking the project to heart, she's painting 2 hearts. Her second will be for the Downtown Naperville Alliance, which will feature its logo and notable Naperville scenes. Reporting for Naperville News 17, I'm Christine Lena.
The heart sculptures will be unveiled on June 9th and will be on display throughout the sidewalks of downtown Naperville until mid-September. Up next, we'll see what spring sports braved the cold for DVC competition.
Since 2001, families and friends have been caught reading Positively Naperville. At home, around town, and all over the world. Thanks for reading, in print and online.
Naperville Crime Stoppers.
Yes, I'd like to report some suspicious activity in my neighborhood. How does this work?
Yes, thanks for calling. Your call is anonymous, and I will not ask for your name. Instead, you'll be identified by a tip number. In a few weeks, call back with the tip number you received, and I will let you know the status of your tip. If an arrest is made, you could receive a reward up to $1,000.
How do I get the reward money if you don't know who I am?
Well, when you call back, we set up a time and a place to drop the money. You will be safe, and nobody will know you gave Crime Stoppers a tip.
Okay, well, here's what's going on.
This sports segment of Naperville News 17 is brought to you by Belgio's Catering, a tradition of excellence.
It's been nearly a year since Mattia Valley girls soccer held on to a 1-0 score to eliminate Waubonsie Valley in the regional finals. Now the conference foes meet on the pitch once more, and the Warriors look for some mid-season revenge on the Mustangs. Going to the 37th minute, no score, but Mattia on the prowl. The center is batted away by the Warriors, but not far enough away, and that allows Charlotte Ives a chance to take a shot and finds the net. 1-0 MV. 8 minutes later, but now in the second half, Mustangs back on the offensive. Ives isn't the one scoring, but she's still helping MV get on the board. Maeve Reardon connects after getting the feed, and now it's 2-0. Well, Bonzi Valley won't just lie down and take the loss. No, instead, Dovey puts it towards the post, and Jillian Macaluso with the deft play, lining it off the Mustang defender and into the twine. 2-1 now, 8 minutes to play. Just a few minutes remaining, the corner coming in for Waubonsie, and it's cleared. Mustangs take the win, 2-1 the final. To the court with Mattia visiting Naperville North in boys volleyball, and the Mustangs grabbing the early point at an Andrew Kohut kill. Kohut back on the attack, but he's blocked. North recovers. His second effort, though, is not good either. Instead, the Huskies get the point on a Brad Lopez spike. But it's not meant to be for the home team. Mustangs insist them after a first set win and take the second set as well. Mattia winning 25-20, 25-22. Heading over to Naperville Central as the Redhawks host the Huskies, and Claire Dewan netting a point for North's top double pairing. They win in straight sets. To two doubles, and Kathleen Nye and Stephanie Liang dominate as well for North, winning 21-10, 21-10. Central does pick up a victory at number 2 singles. Ria Jha is able to edge out a 24-22, 21-17 victory. But North is the state contender for a reason, and Bahavia Manikata claims the match at number 1 singles, and the Huskies win 12-3. Checking in on a former local prep star. Former Mattia Valley bowler Jordan Newham was part of the 2018 National Championship team from Vanderbilt, so congratulations to her and the rest of her Commodore teammates. Speaking of congratulations, those are certainly in order for Naperville native John Fisher after he finished 50 marathons in 50 states, completing the Boston Marathon to complete the marathon circuit. The 5 remaining DuPage Valley Conference members met on April 18th to discuss the future of the conference, and Naperville North Athletic Director Bob Quinn is optimistic.
This league will continue to thrive. People have said to me, oh, I know the DuPage Valley Conference is going away. The DuPage Valley Conference is not going away. The DuPage Valley Conference is strong and healthy, and that's one of the things that we're affirming today.
For the full story on the direction of the DVC, we'll take a deeper dive on this week's Sports Story Sunday. Finally, to North Central, where the Cardinal women's lacrosse team remains red hot. A 23-4 win over Elmhurst College keeps the conference record perfect, and the program has already tied for the most wins in a single season with 13. That's it for sports. Kim, back to you.
Thanks, Kevin. Conference championships begin in the upcoming weeks, so stay up to date on the latest highlights with the newest episodes of Naperville Sports Weekly and highlights on NCTV17.com. And finally, it's time to crank the cute factor up as we head out to Fermilab for some new arrivals. The baby bison are here, and they're adorable. The first 2 calves of the year have been born, and at just 2 days old, they were already walking around and feeding. Though they may seem a strange fit for the country's premier particle physics laboratory, the bison have become an important part of Fermilab's own frontier.
The first ones that were brought in 1968. I think they start with 2 cows, and then they grew up from there. It's part of the landscape of Fermilab now, after 50 years.
The addition of these 2 brings the tally of bison at Fermilab
This episode of Business Connection is brought to you in part by presenting sponsor DuPage Credit Union.
I'm Liz Spencer, and welcome to Business Connection, introducing you to the names and faces of Naperville area entrepreneurs and business owners. Today we'll talk with Opus and BuzzBoss, but stay tuned for DuPage Credit Union, all here on Business Connection. Welcome to Business Connection. I'm Liz Spencer. We welcome back old friends today. It's DuPage Credit Union. I have Nora Hickey with me. She's a residential lending specialist assistant manager, and joining her is Pamela Nystrom. She's the community development manager. So welcome, ladies. We're here to talk all about DuPage Credit Union, so thank you.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about the mortgage and home equity environment today. It's kind of exciting.
It is exciting. So what we've noticed is people are starting to find that their values have increased, they have equity, or they're ready to make that next step and purchase their first home. So we're finding that we have a lot of members interested in that and getting mortgage information. And what's nice with the credit union is we're here to help. And it's also fascinating because the more prepared you are with the mortgage, the better you're going to be in this market, because it's a very competitive real estate market.
It's a very fast market.
Yes.
Right. Yes, it's going to go quickly. What sets DuPage Credit Union apart from your average traditional mortgage lender?
Yeah, absolutely. What really sets us apart is we're there for our members. We're really about building the relationship and making everything smooth and easy for them. At the credit union, our loan specialists, such as myself, are non-commissioned. So we're really there to meet your needs, not necessarily ours, which is very nice and important.
It is important.
The other thing, too, is we have a lot of different benefits. We have lower private mortgage insurance rates that we can discuss with members. We're there to make sure that in a purchase situation, we meet all of your dates, and we're going to guarantee that. So we're there just to really have a team approach to whether you're purchasing or refinancing to make sure everything gets done for you.
So Pamela, tell me a little bit about your preferred realtor network. What's it all about?
So how the realtor network works is when a member chooses one of our partner realtors to sell or buy their home, that realtor provides them with a portion of their commission at closing. So it's up to $500.
Oh, wow.
So that money can really come in handy when they're purchasing a home.
It can, because you get a lot of little extra expenses, or you want a new sofa or something like that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, why choose to use the preferred network?
And that's a great question, Liz. Why would someone choose our preferred realtors over maybe a neighbor or a friend? Each realtor has been pre-screened and interviewed by myself. So they go through that process before they're put in the network. Another good reason is we take the headache and stress out of finding a trusted agent. That can be really hard if maybe you don't know anyone, or you're just going online trying to get a feel. I've done all that homework for someone. And another a great reason to use one of our realtors is they're top performers in the industry. We've done our homework. They're very knowledgeable. They know, they know the industry. So we know that we're putting our members in good hands. And finally, another great reason is this is a benefit. It's free.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So there's no one has to pay for this service. It's totally free.
I think that's a great idea. I think you guys are super smart, because we often have friends who are realtors and we don't know who to choose.
It can be hard.
It can be, and right. So it's nice to be able to say, oh, I went over to DuPage Credit Union and they helped me because I worked with the loan and everything like that. So that's a great thing, and I think that's wonderful. So tell me about the types of mortgages over at DuPage Credit Union that I can take advantage of.
Sure. At the credit union, we really are a full service lender, just like any other financial institution, but again, with more of that personal touch. So if you're a first-time home buyer or you've bought lots of homes before, what's interesting is at the credit union, you only need at least a 3% down payment. I think a lot of people think they need 20% down, and that's not true. And we also have a full range of home equity products, refinance products. So what we're finding right now is people are in the mood to do home improvement projects, some spring cleaning. So we're there to help you pull that equity out, make it super simple. Or what people are finding too is, since they do have that equity, if they're in a situation where they were paying private mortgage insurance before, now they might have enough equity to get rid of that and save even more money.
That is a great thing. That's a great thing. Why should a homeowner get pre-approved?
Absolutely. And that's so important because, as I mentioned before, it's a very competitive and fast real estate market. So what you're going to find is when you're working with a good, experienced realtor, they're going to want to make sure you have everything in order. So when you find the home that is perfect for you, you need to move like that.
Quickly.
Yeah.
Very
There's no
quickly.
time to think about, or that house will be gone. So the more prepared you are ahead of time, the more competitive you're going to be able to be.
Well, I also think it goes to being pre-approved. You know what you can afford.
Yes.
So it helps with the selection process. It helps the realtor guide
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah, the realtor knows what you're looking for.
Right, and that's important because the last thing you want to do is go out for a home that is either too big or too small for you and then be disappointed when they get to the closing thing. Tell me a little bit about DuPage Credit Union and who's the customer you're looking for? Who becomes a member?
Sure. Well, really, our membership field is anyone who lives or works in DuPage, Kane, Kendall, Lake McHenry, or Will County. So really, everyone's a member. So we're here to help everybody with their financial wellness, and we're there for our members and anything they need.
Now, if we're thinking about buying a home or get a home equity loan or selling, can we just stop in and chat and start our conversation with you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. We make it really easy at the credit union. You can stop into any branch, or you can even give us a call, go on our website, and we'll do free consultations that are personalized for every member, or even if you're not a member yet and just thinking about it, we're here to help.
And Pamela, if we're thinking about getting that realtor with your great network, how do we do that? How do we get connected with that? Do we do that as one-stop shop? Should we just come in and talk to both areas at the same time?
And you can, absolutely. Sometimes a member will come in, or a prospective member will come in, meet with Nora, and they're talking about the nuts and bolts of a mortgage, but the realtor becomes secondary. So that's where that piece would come in. So they can speak to Nora, and she's happy to help them. Any mortgage specialist can help them. If they're maybe doing their banking, you know, and they speak to someone in one of our branches, or again, they can go online to DuPageCU.com and they can review our realtors there. It's very easy to get started.
Well, and that's what I think is so welcoming about the DuPage Credit Union, whether you're there for a mortgage or checking or anything like that, you guys are always there to help. So thanks so much for stopping by, sharing a little bit about what you do and the exciting news in both mortgage and home equity loans. And we'll be right back with more Business Connection.
Bethany Lutheran Church and School partners with parents to give children in preschool through 8th grade a Bible-based Christian education. Since 1927, our teachers have been bringing students the gospel message of Jesus Christ in a safe, disciplined, and engaging environment for academics and extracurriculars. With small class sizes, children can learn to honor and respect God, their parents, our staff, each other, and themselves. We focus on engaging the whole self, mind, body, and soul, and teach right from wrong from a biblical perspective. In addition to discovering their academic strengths, our students can develop their other gifts and talents through the J.S. Bach Academy of Music, competing in interscholastic sports, or participating in clubs and activities. Bethany's students excel academically and socially beyond graduation. Many go on to take AP and honors classes in high school. You don't have to be a member of Bethany Lutheran Church to have your children attend our school. In fact, 60% of those we serve have a different home church. Here we also love giving back to our great community. We host events such as Touch a Truck, Oktoberfest, plus so many other opportunities to make a positive impact. Bethany Lutheran Church and School, laying a solid foundation for tomorrow.
Welcome to Business Connection. I'm Liz Spencer. We welcome back old friends. It's Opus. I have Mara Gallagher, Music Director, and Denise West, Director of Community Relations. And it's Opus, and we're talking Opus because summer must be near. So that means your camp is coming back for chamber music. Tell me a little bit about it.
Absolutely. So our camp commences on July 29. And we work a whole week, and then we present concerts on August 4th. The camp and the concert are at North Central College this year. and the students, have already applied, and they send us tapes, and they send us information about themselves, and then what will happen in early June, after everyone's applied, we get together and assign the groups, send them some music, they prepare diligently, and then during that great week, they get together and they rehearse, have an awful lot of fun, and then on that Saturday concert, they show the parents what they did.
That's awesome. And this is for kids ages?
8 to 18.
Right, chamber music?
Chamber music, so that means smaller groups. Generally 3 or 4 people, sometimes we've had 5 or 6 in the group.
That's wonderful. That makes for a very intimate setting. What's new and improved for 2018?
Well, for 2018, one of our biggest changes is in our Arts Connections project. So each afternoon, the students devote an hour to connecting music in a different way. So we offer videography, so they love to go take some some clips, and then they add music to it to tell a story. And then, but we also have composition. We've had some amazing pieces. We also have arranging. So it's very, students really like to take the latest pop hit and play it, say, on the cello and the string bass. Yeah, it's really cool. But the new thing is electric instruments. So it's going to be a fusion of pop music and chamber music via like a 5-string violin or an electric cello, and so we have Daryl Silberman leading that up this year, and she's amazing on it.
That's incredible. I bet that's very popular with the students.
Well, I'm sure it will be. We've never done it before, so we don't know, but I'm positive that the sections will be full.
That's great. So, Denise, tell me, you have a special concert, a new concert. And it's
Yes, we're excited about it. We really are. This year, Opus has added a new special community concert. It's going to be on Monday, August the 6th, 2018 at 2 o'clock. p.m. Wentz Concert Hall. It's entitled Young Artists Honor, Salute, and Love Concert. And it is special this year because the target audience is seniors, veterans, and the underserved community. And it is a special community concert because the city of Naperville is sponsoring a SECA grant for this concert. SECA stands for Special
Events and Cultural Amenity.
Exactly, exactly. And we're excited. We want you to come out. Remember the date, August 6th, 2 o'clock, Wentz Concert Hall. We will honor our veterans, our seniors, and you will love the Opus music.
That's great. So will students from the camp be playing in this concert as well?
Yes, the audience will hear some of the music that's presented on August 4th, but as an extra special, it's an opportunity to hear some of those arts awareness projects. Okay. So some of the electrical instruments, some compositions. And truthfully, we don't even really know yet that part of the concert because we just have to see what the projects are.
So you're sort of creating it as you go, which is so exciting.
Yes, we will create the August 6th concert during the camp.
Wow. In just 1 week, you pull this whole concert off.
Well, no. The students are already practicing their instruments every week for their private teachers at home.
Right, I know, but it's still, I think that's one of the exciting things about this 1 week camp, and I think, for the parents and those who come and have had the privilege and honor to sit and listen to them, they realize that you bring all these students together in 1 week, and you get them to work together, and then you get this wonderful result. I think that's awesome.
You know what, it is. Sometimes I'm amazed because they walk in and they don't even know each other.
Yes.
And then in 1 week they're like best friends, and it sounds amazing. So yes, it's just a little bit magical.
It is a little bit magical. That's the best way to put it. You also have a one-day community workshop, a chamber music workshop.
Yes, that workshop is on August 18th. Now there's 2 targeted groups that might go. The first is, so say a student is on vacation the week of the camp and they just really wanted to play some chamber music before going back to school. This is the day for some intensive rehearsing followed by a concert. But to that one-day seminar, we also invite adults. And we've had students all the way up to age 85.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so we just pair up some chamber music groups, they work together, and it's another fun day.
Is that the never too late?
It's the never too late to play.
That's awesome. I think that's great. Now let's talk a little bit about what's ahead for Opus.
Opus has the week-long camp currently. We're offering the special concert to the veterans on the 6th. We have the one-day seminar on August 18th. Now, Opus always does holiday concerts, and we go to some senior citizen area, places. Now, what we're looking at for next year is a chamber music competition.
Wow.
And so we're still in the discussion stage. We're targeting possibly early April and possibly having the public able to attend and watch a real competition.
That's wonderful. Well, we look forward to that. One of the things that strike me as I sit here with you ladies is, what are the life skills your musicians walk away with from knowing chamber music?
I'm amazed at the discipline that it takes for the students to practice and practice and practice. They get better. I'm just amazed at their talent level and what the instructors and what Dr. Lynn's passion has done to create this camp. It's been amazing. It's been amazing.
I think one life skill I see is the teamwork aspect. When you play chamber music, there's not one person just being the boss and running away, say, with the basketball. Everyone has to be working together to get a great performance. And I think that teamwork carries over to later in life. So Opus has a lot of alumni right now that are in the workforce. And I hear them report back that those teamwork skills are useful in the office.
I think that's wonderful, and I'm sure, much like other camp experiences, they meet friends for life and they share a passion together. And I can't thank you enough for what you do in the community. Opus is a vital part of what makes Naperville great, so thank you so much. I appreciate you stopping by, and we're going to be back with more Business Connection. Stay tuned. I think it's really special that Naperville has a community television station devoted to what's happening in Naperville on so many levels, at the citizen resident level, at the government level, at the not-for-profit level, at the business level. We are here covering this vibrant community and telling its stories. It's so important, the role we play. We bring a little bit of home to you no matter where you are or when you want to watch. You can always go to our website, follow us on Facebook and Twitter or any of our social media sites, and find a story about Naperville from Naperville Community Television. Welcome to Business Connection. I'm Liz Spencer. We have a fascinating guest in studio today. It's Tadek Sampson, and he's the Buzz Boss. So you're going to here to tell me about mosquitoes and more importantly, how you and your company help me battle mosquitoes.
Yes.
So let's get started with, okay, it's springtime, mosquitoes are coming. How do we know if it's going to be a good year or a bad year? What determines that?
So mosquitoes, the mosquito population is entirely dependent on weather. And so the two things, one is how much water they get. So if there's lots of snowfall, then there's going to be a good ground saturation. And then if there's lots of rainfall, then there'll be these accumulations of water, and that'll activate the eggs. And then as soon as it starts heating up, if it gets above 75 degrees, then you'll start to see them hatching in large numbers. And over 75 degrees, mosquito can go from egg to adult in about a week.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it happens fast.
And there's a lot of eggs.
There's a lot of eggs.
So let's ask that age-old question, why do mosquitoes bite?
Yeah, so mosquitoes don't actually feed on blood. They feed on nectar, males and females. But females, in order to produce eggs, they have to get a blood meal because they need that protein to make their eggs. So only the females bite, and that's why they bite us. Yeah.
Wow. Well, and lots of us, because they come in what seems to be droves,
Yeah.
and what can we do to protect ourselves? Obviously, we can get our yard sprayed by you guys, which is a good thing. If you have too many of them, it's a great way to go. But what are some other common sense things if we're out in a park or at a concert or that we can do?
So exactly. If you're out at a park or you're out hiking, the best thing that you can do, gold standard for getting rid of the mosquitoes, or keeping them off of you, is DEET. Any type of repellent with DEET in it. That's been the gold standard for 50 years. But there are other types of more natural insect repellents, but the challenge with those is generally you have to reapply them more often, especially if you're sweating. And so you could be reapplying those as much as every hour or every half an hour to be effective. So the other things that you can do, which is wear long sleeve clothing, long sleeve pants, long sleeve shirt, and light colored clothing.
Now, I always hear the light color clothing, and I think, well, that's smart because it's hot and I don't want to wear black. But there's something else to that, right?
Yes, so there's a couple different ways that mosquitoes are attracted to us. The number one way is through their sense of smell. So they have a sense of smell. It's 10,000 times more powerful than ours. We have 300 different chemical cues that they pick up on from us. And so that's the main thing. And then the second thing is their eyesight. And they can see us from a certain distance away, and they're more attracted to dark colors, contrast, and movement. And then as well, as they get closer to us, they can feel our heat from about 3 to 4 feet. They actually pick up on our body heat. And so when you're wearing light color clothing, it does more to mask that body heat that they're picking up on.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Now, I always joke that I think mosquitoes like me more than they may like you.
Right.
But I do think there's something that some people are more sensitive to them.
Yes.
Is there some science behind that?
There is science behind that. They're finding that certain people, all those chemical cues that we give off, certain people emit stronger cues than others. So they're attracted to carbon dioxide. So if you give off more through your breath, or lactic acid. So if your sweat may have a different makeup than someone else's, they'll be more attracted to you.
Well, it must be all of it there. So there are other things though in our yard that we can maybe do to keep the mosquito population down.
Yes. The biggest thing, standing water. If you can get rid of your standing water in your yard, that is the #1 thing that you can do. And so, you hear it all the time, but it's bird baths, wading pools. You want to make sure those are cleaned out once a week.
Oh, wow. That's once a week.
Yeah, because otherwise, like I said, they can develop in a week. So if you don't clean them out on a regular basis, there will be breeding there. And then same thing with, pots, garbage cans, different things like that. If they're collecting water, there's going to be mosquito breeding, and you have this mosquito factory going on in your yard. You really don't want that. Same thing with gutters. If your eaves, troughs, and gutters are blocked, then they're going to accumulate water. Any standing water, mosquitoes will be breeding in.
No matter what size, standing water too, because I think we all think, oh, standing water, I got a big puddle back here, but they can really breed in just about any drop of water.
Absolutely. So a mosquito can lay up to, or mosquitoes can lay up to 1,000 eggs within a cup of water in a season.
Wow.
So it doesn't take much, and you can get a lot of eggs just from a small amount of standing water.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, and I did it this past year. You can go and you can buy plants that supposedly repel mosquitoes and have them grow around your yard. I bought a couple. I'm not sure it worked. But what do you think about that? Is that a good idea? Is that a bad idea?
Well, I mean, anything you can do to help is a good idea, right? So, I mean, there is some science behind marigolds, chrysanthemum flowers, garlic. That's one of the products that we use to keep mosquitoes away. So
garlic?
Yep, garlic.
Okay.
It does
Helping
seem
with
to
vampires
work.
too?
Yeah, but anything that drinks blood seems to not like it. So yeah, there are some plants that mosquitoes do seem to avoid. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about. So I've done that. I've keep my standing water down. I may have bought some plants.
Yeah.
I'm wearing some light color clothing, and I'm still, needing some service in my backyard. When you come in, what do you do? How does it work?
A couple of things. Well, first thing we do is we make sure that all those things that are cultural, so things that mosquitoes will be attracted to your yard and want to hang out in your yard, that could be something like dense bushes. Anywhere where it's damp and shady, if we can reduce the number of areas where they might be hiding or harboring, because mosquitoes have soft bodies and they can't stay out in the sun, they can't stay out in the wind, they'll dehydrate and die very quickly.
Well, they're sensitive, aren't they?
Yeah, so they hide in these damp, dark areas. And so we help you identify those and reduce those as much as possible, but then as well, we'll use a mist in those areas. And mist products that they really don't like, they'll stay away from those, like the undersides of leaves. We'll create a coating on those that they'll stay away from for 3 weeks at a time, and then you come back out and do that and do it again on a regular basis.
So the spray that you're putting out, you mentioned it had garlic in it. What else does it have in there? Is it I'm assuming it's family and pet friendly.
Yeah, so the products that you use have to be safe for people, pets, and wildlife. Yeah. And so we use there's a synthetic product that's based on chrysanthemum flowers, which mosquitoes can't take, and repels them for a long time. And then actually garlic, we use a garlic. It's 700 pounds of garlic. And you take that 700 pounds, juice it into about a gallon, and we'll mix that with a little vegetable oil and some other things, all natural. And that will actually, the sulfur in the garlic keeps the mosquitoes away for a good 3 weeks usually.
Wow, so, that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Tadex, thanks so much for stopping by and giving us a little insight on mosquitoes and what you do. That's exciting. And I'm really excited about BuzzBoss and the products that you use. So thanks so much for stopping by.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
We'll be right back with more Business Connection. Stay tuned. If you're interested in a television appearance on Business Connection as a way to reach out to your community or to gain exposure for your company, contact NCTV17 at 630-355-2124. I'm Liz Spencer, and thank you for watching Business Connection.
This episode of Business Connection is brought to you in part by presenting sponsor DuPage Credit Union.
Naperville Sports Weekly is brought to you by presenting sponsor, BMO Harris Bank.
We wrap up another week of high school sports with badminton, girls soccer, and boys lacrosse. But first, we hit the courts with boys volleyball. We saw Chase Olson and the Huskies dominate a few weeks ago against Downers Grove South. Now they face off against the Mustangs from Mattia.
6'6" senior Chase Olson and the Huskies welcome Mattia Valley to their court. The Mustangs come off a win against rival Neuqua Valley in straight sets. North leading early in set 1, but Matthew Neelan tips one up to Andrew Kohut for the quick kill to put the Mustangs down only 2. You'll see this duo dominate all night. Tied at 7th, Huskies Chase Olson with a dangerous serve, but Mustang Caden Rigel was ready for it. Neelan sets him up for the attack for the Mustangs to take a 1-point lead. A few points later, and a nice double block by Husky defenders at the net throw the Mustangs for a loop, pushing a free ball over. Chase Olson will take one out of Kohut's book for the slam that falls to the ground. Huskies down 11-20. Huskies leading early in 2, looking to extend it. Jaworski tips it over into a Mustang block that makes North readjust. Jaworski gets up for another go, this time swinging, but again, Mustang's D is ready for it. One more time for Jaworski, and this time he finds it successful. Huskies up 5-3. But that's where the Huskies' effort ends. Match ends on a net violation from North. Mattia wins in straight sets 25-20, 25-22.
We played really loose and we were really confident coming in. We just kind of stayed confident and we knew like we had still a pretty decent amount of points more than them, and we just kept playing our game.
Sticking with Naperville North and staying on the courts, but this time traveling to Central with the badminton team as they face off against the Redhawks.
Rivals Naperville North and Naperville Central meet on the badminton court for the first time this season. Jumping courts to 1 doubles, Husky Clara Dwan and Taylor Zhao against sisters Joyce and Kathy Zhang. North up early in this one as Dwan blasts one right past Kathy, taking the first set 21-11. In the second set, after a little back and forth, Dwan places the birdie perfectly to the left of the sisters, helping North to the win, 21-10. 2 singles, Cindy Zhu against Central's Ria Jha with a high-flying birdie going both ways. Ria Jha rockets one for the point. In the second set, Jha on her game again with another nicely placed shot right in the front of the camera. Jha wins in straight sets. Top matchup.